your beautiful presentations for posterity forever. While the judges are deliberating, Christina and I don't think she's here yet.
No, she's not there yet.
Are going to present, have a little chat, and then we will continue our discussion as well, because we always need to. And I believe that is everything. Judges, you are welcome to take, I have about 20 minutes scheduled for you guys. You're welcome to take 20 minutes, or if you decide faster than 20 minutes, that's awesome as well. I believe that's everything. So let me make all of my presenters co-hosts here. All right. So let's start with our Women in STEM team. Emma and Miriam, if you have anything, if you have screen you'd like to share, you should be able to now.
I do. Hold on.
Yes.
Let me just sure I'm sharing the right one. Yeah. Okay. That working?
Yep, perfect.
Cool. So we were studying women in STEM. Yeah, the briefing kind of that we were given was how technology could help providing access and incentives to STEM education. For example, if you're given the chance to develop an app for girls, like to inspire them to learn STEM, how would you design the app? I think we got pretty early on that an app probably wasn't going to be the best. I think that was a consensus along, like when we spent the first day maybe thinking of a few ideas, we brought them to the group. I think kind of the consensus was, I don't think an app is going to solve this solution, solve this problem. I think it's much, it is a much bigger problem than can be solved with just throwing an app at it. So kind of we have a few kind of non-technology based solutions, but that certainly that could be kind of supplemented with technology and kind of approach from that aspect. So kind of the problems we discovered or kind of identified were kind of the big problem was like how women are viewed in STEM and how women view STEM. Like that can be a major barrier to overcome when trying to encourage more women to join it, because it is such a male dominated field. And people like women see it, oh, it's a male dominated field, like I'm not going to go into that. And also when women do go into that, it's like, oh, you're a woman in this field, like that can be seen as very much lesser. There's also kind of a lack of resources, kind of in a lot of schools, a lot of all girls schools especially, not all sciences are offered, and are like not necessarily mandatory, which like can mean that like girls and women who would like maybe go into science and who would enjoy science are either turned away from it or just choose not to go into it because initially they don't have any interest, or turned away from it because their school maybe doesn't have physics as an option, doesn't have applied maths as an option. And so they can't, like they're restricted from that, like because of the lack of resources from these schools. And there's also a problem in retention, like kind of as you can see here, like if you say 100 women enter college and obtain a bachelor, and 12 of those would have a bachelor in a STEM major, and like 5 of them are working in STEM after 2 years. That's less than half. And then 3 of them are working in STEM after 10 years. So again, that's kind of a big problem, like the problem of like keeping women in STEM and kind of they're leaving STEM, and like they're leaving STEM, whether it's from culture, whether it's from kind of better opportunities elsewhere, you still kind of, that's still a big area. There's also kind of the image of STEM. Kind of Miriam helped me a lot with this because I'm in STEM, and like kind of there's this kind of the view of STEM from the general public of it being for nerds, of it being for kind of people from the Big Bang Theory, kind of unsociable, kind of a bit weird, a bit kind of like not me who has friends or kind of goes out to parties. Like that's like, I'm not interested in that sort of thing, whereas that's completely, as someone who's in STEM, that's completely different to the actual people who are on the course. But it's just the view of the culture is very different to what it actually is for most people, I'd say. And we kind of did a bit of research, and we contacted Joanne, who's the CEO of Turntine. This is it's an organization specifically aimed at kind of teenage girls to kind of get them involved in STEM, to kind of get them involved in kind of mentorship programs, after school study. And she was kind of saying, like, she kind of illustrated a lot of the problems that like she's found, and kind of aspects where she showed like where people kind of really engaged. And we kind of also found studies on the impact of role models on women. Kind of, I've got a graph here, which before role models and after role models. And kind of the red line is when the role models are low counter stereotypical, which means they're not like they're not, they kind of follow what you kind of the preconceived notions. And the green line is like the high counter to stereotypical, like they don't follow kind of your preconceived notions of what a woman in STEM would be. And as you can see, there's a massive kind of there's effects, much more effects when it's kind of high stereotypical role models. But even still, like, you can see that slight upward slope, even when the models are as kind of what women would expect. The barriers and gaps that we identified is kind of the next one. Kind of Joanne was saying when we kind of talked to her that it was very difficult to get, like, the most difficult thing she found was to get people involved, to kind of get them to take the first step. And there's this whole thing about like kind of a buy-in. Like if you're a student in school and you see a program and you're like, oh, I might be interested in that, but it's optional, you kind of have to go into it. Like you might just forget about it. You might just kind of say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow and never do. You might just be like, oh, I'm not bothered at the minute, I have a test next week, or maybe I'll do it next time. And then you never end up doing it. So there's a whole thing about people not doing things that they might want to do, that they might be interested in, that might really enjoy, because it's an extra, kind of, there's a whole buy-in factor. And also it's difficult to keep women involved was another thing. You kind of once, kind of the second hardest thing Joanne was saying, kind of once you have the stick, once you kind of get them on the fly paper, you have to make sure they stick to it. So kind of that's the kind of a big problem for any kind of solution is you can get if you get people in the door, but you kind of have to keep them in. The next one was kind of an embarrassment factor. And again, this is kind of feeding back into that kind of view of STEM as something that is kind of for nerds, for people who are unsociable. And like girls, like no matter how good your kind of solution is, no matter how good your like project is, if it's seen as uncool or embarrassing, a lot of people aren't going to do it. Like if it's because they don't want to be that uncool person. There's also the kind of problem about how to make it for women without being kind of exclusionary or also cringy. Like there's a lot of things that are for women and are built for women that people just like, oh, like it's just kind of like, oh, I'm not, like it's cringy. A lot of the time there can be a lot of kind of disincentive just because I just don't want to go into that. That's just very like it's very feminine. It's very and also Miriam was saying like her kids they'd be like, a lot of people in all girls schools would be a lot more inclined to go to thing if there were also boys there, just from like the social aspect of it as well. So kind of these are the kind of, we had three main solutions. I think most of them are aimed at kind of teenage kind of students, just because I think that was an area we decided to focus on, because I'm just out of there and Miriam's kids are still in there. And so that's kind of the area we kind of have the most experience with. And so the first solution would be kind of inter-school competitions. This would be kind of after the style of like maybe Toastmasters, kind of debating competitions, like things like that. Like the structure already exists there, it just hasn't been specifically tapped for a science or science audience. So kind of it would be aimed at secondary school students, so kind of students in TY especially, because they have a lot of free time. And it would be kind of a social and competitive thing, kind of make friends and enemies, eat pizza. And it would be short term, kind of maybe one or 2 days, like a period maximum. Like a lot different from kind of the big science competition at the minute is the BT Young Scientist. And the thing with that is it requires a massive amount of work, a massive amount of buy-in. And the most like people who are already thinking about STEM, or at least already considering it, are going to buy into that and are going to participate in that. So like you're not going to get a lot of people who kind of aren't involved in that and who aren't in kind of engaging with that already. So kind of the idea of the format of it, we thought like short talk on like something to do with STEM, like on technology, on like bridge construction if you're engineering, on like there's a lot that there's a reason why there's so many science museums. It's because science you can make science extremely interesting and then followed by a task. The focus is on making it accessible and making it fun. Because that's where we draw people in, that's where we get people in the door, basically, and we kind of bring industry back into it, like industry guest speakers, people who are in research or in any industry, to get involved and to kind of show that's where you could go with this fun hobby that you're doing on your weekends. The next is kind of our social media campaign, and this would kind of be in similar to the 20x20 kind of women in sport campaign that was running kind of all through this year, and also kind of aimed at revamping and modernizing STEM in the eyes of the public. So just making it more accessible, making it seem a little bit cooler, more hip. So we're kind of focusing on kind of stories from people in STEM, stories from people who are involved, whether they're the physics Nobel Prize winners, whether they're software engineers, construction engineers, whether they're botanists or zoologists. There is a wide range of careers out there, and I think we can simultaneously illustrate the wide range of careers and aspects you can go into, and also the paths that you can take to go in there. I think someone was talking about yesterday kind of how do we get students from disadvantaged backgrounds in, because a lot of the time they wouldn't have those same opportunities to say go to UCD, to go to Trinity, especially if they're from the country, because the rent, getting even living space in Dublin is a massive expense. But there's a lot of ITs around the country that offer STEM subjects, that offer kind of pathways through that, and kind of illustrating people who went through those pathways and who still managed to accomplish, or I say still because sorry that my own bias showing through, who did manage to accomplish cool things, great things, and get great jobs and make a great difference in the world. So I think that could really help students from those backgrounds, and it also kind of would help from the eyes of the parents. I don't think you should ever underestimate kind of the power of parents when they're encouraging their students to take subjects. I don't think you should ever underestimate that. And if we show that there are jobs in these subjects, if we show that there are well-paying, well-respected jobs in these subjects, I think parents would be a lot more on board to kind of give their kids a little extra nudge, especially their girls a little extra nudge into those subjects if they can see that those kind of girls are there. And obviously, I don't think I've illustrated here, which is very funny, but a lot of those role models would be women. And then kind of our last solution is kind of a mentorship program. Kind of Joanne was saying this is kind of the one areas she found the most success in. I think kind of what we kind of said would we would do it specifically as a work experience program in TY, because the buy-in is already there. Students already have to kind of go out and find work experience there. So if we make it extremely easy for them, just to be oh, sign up here, we got you, we'll make you a match with a mentor and you can go shadow them for a week. And that's you'll have that buy-in for people who might not necessarily have done it otherwise. And obviously I think with a lot of work experience programs, you end up filing for a week and you come back and you're I have no idea what an accountant does because I just spent the entire week filing. So if we design kind of these mentorship programs around giving students things to do, around kind of having that interaction with the mentor, and then we can kind of have a lot bigger, a lot more of an effect, a lot more of an impact, and kind of word of mouth. Oh, I had a great TY work experience with my mentor. Oh, maybe I'll do that as well. Maybe I'll apply for that. I might not be interested in kind of botany or whatever, but I think you'll never underestimate again the impact of work experiences on people deciding what they want to do with their careers. And then we kind of looked at further solutions. I think women in STEM, ultimately, the lack of women in STEM is a systemic problem. It needs a systemic solution more than anything else. I think there needs to be kind of a reform of the education system. That it hasn't changed. A lot of the biology course hasn't changed since at least the 1970s. Yeah, it's still very regimented, very focused, very get the points you need and leave don't think about it anymore. It's not for fun, it's for points. Also, there needs to be reform in like the workplace, kind of less toxic working environments, kind of like old boys clubs that exist and they're systemic and needs to be kind of a company, like companies need to look at themselves and need to look at their hiring practices and think, that's a problem that we have ourselves. Kind of more resources for schools as well. Another problem, kind of Joanne was saying, was kind of resources, like girls are turned away from physics because schools maybe only have a few places because like they don't have enough like science kits for everyone. So it's like, oh well, the boys, this is more of a boys thing, so why don't you do kind of HE or something like that. So I think if we increase the resources from schools, and also that would also mean that all schools would be able to make science a requirement, a mandatory subject for junior cert, which isn't the case at the minute. Like a lot of schools say, oh yeah, like if you want to, you can do science, which I don't think is very good, because when you're 13 and you're like, oh, should I do cooking or science? And you're 13, you don't know what you're going to do, you don't know what you want to do yet. So I don't think that's way too early to make that choice. So I do think it should be kind of mandatory for primary school students. That's it, I think. Yeah, is there any questions?
Wonderful presentation, Emma. No, definitely wonderful. And yes, judges or anybody else, if you'd like to ask questions or comment, you're more than welcome to.
If I may. Yeah, that's very interesting. Very good understanding of the situation, and I like the word which is called co-opetition. So both the competition and the cooperation, the possibility to cooperate with people. The point is, what have you considered like something like on the cost side? So what would it cost to keep people working on that? I mean, to get people working on that and to keep them working on that, because basically people will get tired after a while. So how do you engage them and how do you keep them?
So on the competition or on what? Sorry.
On all of your solutions.
On
so
all of the
basically, I
solutions.
understand that your solution will be made by people around you, possibly parents. But after a while, they will grow tired. And so how can you help them? Yeah.
So with mentorship programs, because it's focused on a kind of a TY work experience, that's usually like, I think there's 3 weeks in a year where TY students go on, maybe more. And like already a lot of companies are taking on kind of TY work experience students. I think this would be more of just a formalized way of doing it. So I'd say like a lot of schools, a lot of businesses. I know I did my TY work experience in an architecture firm. So like there is already a system there for that, and there's already people there. The reason like why people wouldn't get tired, to answer your question, is because it's like it is only like 3 weeks out of a year. It's not constant. Social media campaign, I think you would have to pay people to do. I think we didn't do much. I will admit we didn't do much of a kind of a cost, kind of costing out of it. I think we were kind of much more focused on ideas and kind of more of that, admittedly. You would have to pay someone.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think the school engagement is a huge thing. They're really looking for TY programs. So anything that you can throw in there, they'll definitely, if you get the schools on board, that's where it'll, and then the next year see it coming, and they're fighting for places to take part in it, and especially if it's an inter-school competition, that competitiveness with the schools. Also, a
lot of schools do pay to do inter-school competitions. Like I know the debating competitions, there is like a fee paid by the school to join, and like they're also kind of sponsored. Like that would be kind of by tech companies. I know Matheson does the debating competitions. They're a law firm. They want people to associate their name with kind of law, and they want to get their little lawyers in early. So like you could sponsor it through tech, like you could have a company sponsoring competitions. I think like there's definitely ways to get it to pay for itself, I think, for everything except maybe the social media campaign. But I think how you avoid kind of burnout is that you don't kind of stress any one particular role model or worker too hard. You maybe do 1 or 2 weeks out of the year of their time, one interview on the social media page maybe, and then leave it at that. Like send them invites if they want to do, make sure everything is optional rather than kind of having it mandatory within the company. I think answers your question. Grant, thanks.
I think there's been really, really great ideas presented here. And I feel that I like the way that you've gone in to understand the drivers and the motivations behind the problem statements. I thought that as well, bringing up the fact that, you know, you thought about disadvantaged and vulnerable communities getting access as well. And there's a real understanding. A question for me, I think, as a judge, and one of the criteria for the judges is just in terms of will it fit with and benefit the company's business model? So in terms of, there's definitely benefits for, say, getting more students into STEM, but how do you think a company, so if you're selling this kind of like why it's good for the company to get engaged in this program, whether it be the mentorship program, and why is it good for the company's business model? How would you answer that one?
Well, I definitely think there is a level of kind of advertising there, kind of, as I mentioned, like Matheson funds debating competitions because they want kind of people to associate their name with lawyers. They want people who are interested in debating to kind of grow up and consider joining Matheson. So like companies who would sponsor science competitions, who would be involved in kind of that area, like the people who are involved in that are going to grow up and go into areas that will benefit their company and be workers and like have the qualifications that they could go into that company and like work for them. So you are funding kind of kids to kind of you are kind of helping kids to kind of go up and like be kind of the workers that you kind of be ideal employees. Kind of there's also kind of that area of kind of like feeding back into the community, like and how like that's very beneficial as well, because there's the whole, so I'm kind of rambling a bit, I'm sorry, there is the advertising aspect of it, because like you have kind of, if you're funding a social media campaign, and that is for women that people want to share because it's helpful for looking at careers, that people want to share because like they see their friends being role models, because they see, oh, this is something that you want to do, like you want to like go into this area, this is how this person did it. The company that's attached to it, their name is of course being shared a lot, is of course being kind of is being passed around, so that's very useful as well. For like mentorship programs, again, it's this kind of area of like, we're helping out tomorrow's workers, we're helping out people who are hopefully going to grow up to be kind of the employees in the next generation.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Awesome.
Can I make a comment, please? I think from my own experience that maybe just sort of changing the story a little bit is helpful. By the way, I love the presentation and I love the solutions, and I think they're brilliant, and I hope they get implemented. And if anybody knows anyone at Carlo IT and wants me to give them a hand with trying to start some kind of internship or mentorship, I'd be happy to do that. I'd love to do that because I'm in Carlo. I've put a couple of things on the chat, a couple of books, which I just think are great for people to give a bit of confidence. I read this a long time ago, and it's very good. And the person who writes it is a very successful person. She was editor of Cosmopolitan magazine, I think, for a while. She's got a lot of good things to say to help people get the confidence. And the other thing I might put up there is a poem by Neil Gaiman, I don't know how you pronounce it, called The Mushroom Hunters. And I use that poem regularly in the work that we do when we talk about how humans operate and what humans do. But what is interesting about it is that it's written about women, and it shows that the women are the scientists which basically brought humanity out of the plains of ignorance, because women are responsible for the family. They are responsible for survival. It's all very well for Mr. Macho to go and kill the mammoth or whatever, but there's so much other stuff going on about nurturing children, about finding out what food is good and what food is not good, about relationships and so on. And I think if people realize that women are actually the problem solvers of society, we might let go of our little controlling freak mindset and say, oh yes, please help us, because you guys work together, you collaborate, and you find solutions, and you're much more altruistic than the male mindset, certainly the male culture that we live in today. Anyway, I think it's brilliant, and good luck. Thank you.
Fabulous. All right, great work, Emma and Miriam, an amazing presentation. Awesome. All right, so next up, Maureen is, there you are, is going to present. Are you going to share?
I'm just going to.
Cool, perfect. Wonderful. All right, the floor is yours.
So over the last few days, I've been looking at the prompt for meaningful business, which is how managers and leaders can support colleagues to prevent and overcome social isolation while working from home. So one of the first insights that I had was that there are two customers for this problem. You've got the manager and you have the employee. It's also important to remember that the manager is also an employee and is at the same risk of social isolation as their colleagues are. So I considered a few potential solutions to the problem. So I looked at all the prompts to consider a way to solve all of the problems together. And during the mentoring session yesterday, it was suggested that my idea for a mentoring network would be an added stress for many of the employees. And so right now might not be the right time to implement something like that. Yesterday afternoon, during our wrap up, we joked that if someone had a solution to replicate water cooler chats in a virtual way, we'd win a Nobel Prize. And it prompted me to think, there is no virtual solution to replace physical human contact. It's normal that many people are feeling lonely right now. Anxiety isn't always a bad thing. It's our natural response to a perceived threat. And right now, we're living with a very real threat. There's a real concern about health, economic uncertainty, financial uncertainty, and concern for our loved ones. Why wouldn't we be anxious? So right now, this is something we have to live with rather than solve. More importantly, it's something we need to talk about. In a global Mercer study looking at how companies are supporting their employees during the pandemic, under 17% report actually asking their staff what they think and feel. This is one of the most basic things that can be done to make staff feel heard and valued, while also having the potential to provide a solution. One of the biggest barriers that exists to solving this problem lies in the fact that we're all different. Some people miss going to the workplace every day, and some people thrive at being at home. Some people want more workplace Zoom choir meetings, and some people dread the thought of being forced into Zoom activities. So in the same way that individuals are different, teams are different, and organizations are different, there is no singular approach that works for everyone. My proposed solution is best practice guidelines that are adaptable for every team, every organization. The first guideline for everyone should be talk to your staff, ask them what they want and need. Next, every organization should have a designated point of contact for well-being. After that, there can be considerations like time bounding the hours people are spending working. A large number of people are working longer hours at the moment. We can consider flexibility where it's possible, regular staff check-ins, compiling a list of support networks and counselling services, providing well-being gifts to boost morale. There can even be team Zoom workouts if that's what the team want. This doesn't need to cost money, it just needs a willingness to talk, listen, and adapt. There is never a one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to mental health and well-being, but it starts in the same place it always has. We need to talk about it.
Good. Do you want me to share something? Or
Oh, that's
all set? Cool. Wonderful. All right. Another great presentation. So happy with all of them. Any questions or anybody want to ask questions or make comment? The floor is open.
I would, if that's okay, yeah, that was very interesting. And if that's okay, I would like to make a comment. I was, I think 1 year ago, in a presentation about well-being at work, and it was a very interesting presentation. And at some point, so there's a person we're presenting lots of things that they say, okay, you should do this and this and that and this and this. And at some point, someone in the audience asked, if I don't do all this, well, he was saying, I don't do all this and my team is still working well. And the guy presenting was very interesting. He said, yeah, but your team is going to work better if you do this. And I would suggest, yeah, that's that's always a good thing, and that's always a good addition to a team on this thing. Yeah, I was considering, and I'm part of. I like very much Discord for gaming, and you can do all kind of gamings. I found Hanabi, which is a game where you have to work together, and you have an online platform on that, and you can do that on Discord. I had a couple of from the last lockdown. I had a couple of great evenings working with, playing with colleagues on that. Have you considered this aspect?
Yeah, I've just written that down because I actually run a Discord server for mental health. I run a peer support network for mental health. So I've written that down actually because that's something we could even use ourselves.
Okay. Any other questions or comments or anything?
Hi, Maureen. It's Anne here from Gas Networks. So just like great presentation. I really liked your solutions. I know ourselves here in Gas Networks, we've done quite a few things like trying to do regular staff checkups with our team and organize events on a Friday morning where we have just a coffee and a chat, and we use Zoom, and we do breakout sessions where we just have 4 or 5 in a group. Yeah. And maybe people who don't normally work together, that they get to talk about how they're getting on. I found the one about the workouts interesting. I have visions of everybody doing Zumba or aerobics.
Apparently a top thing.
So I will suggest that one at our next section. that might raise a few eyebrows. And in fairness to you, recognize as well that all these things, they don't cost anything. It's really time and having I suppose the people being motivated and wanting to do it.
Yeah.
But it is so important. I know ourselves here in Gas Networks, because we've all been working from home since March, and there's definitely, I think there's probably a bit of tiredness now happening with Zoom. People are getting tired of Zoom calls. Yeah. But like I think it is important to keep the engagement going, and it's trying to come up with new ideas to try and engage staff. But well done on your presentation. It was great.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Go for it. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I just have one more comment for me. So hi, I'm Aoife from Huawei. So yeah, I loved the idea of like starting off by just asking your staff like what they want, because I think that is like hugely important. A lot of like big companies especially go in with, we know what works best, and here you go, here's like these solutions. So I think that is a super idea, because you can definitely get a lot of great ideas coming from the staff, and then you can break into different groups. As some people like gaming, so therefore let's have like a breakout gaming group. Some people like cooking together, and just finding out what they're interested in, and then creating some of those initiatives around that. On the gaming theme, we've definitely found Kahoot quizzes to be a really good way of making the Zoom calls a little bit more interesting and keeping that interactive learning going. So that's just another one to kind of throw out there.
Thank you.
Nice. Great. Yeah, no, I particularly really liked the not making it mandatory aspect. I mentioned yesterday in the chat, we were talking about when I was in school, we had forced fun activities, and everybody hated them. They were decidedly a reason why the forced was the emphasis there. So if there are any other questions from anybody else?
I'd love. Sorry, Mirren, thanks for that presentation. It was very insightful. I suppose echoing the sentiment of what everyone else has kind of said and all, I think like what stood out for me there in terms of the solutions that you were suggesting is that it needs to be team led, and I think it needs to come from the bottom up rather than the top down. There's no point in this type of a scenario in management trying to guess or trying to tell us what to do. It needs to come from the staff themselves, and that door needs to be open. They need to not be afraid to make these suggestions, because even my own team, kind of reflecting what Anne said there, like we're making suggestions to our manager already in terms of, okay, the winter months are going to be tough, it's going to be darker. So, you know, it's going to be dark in the mornings, dark in the evenings. So I'm taking a 2.5 hour lunch break and I'm going for a run, but I'll make up the hours at other times. I just think it's that open door policy from home is kind of what's going to make it work. But I really thought what you said really struck home. So thank you.
Yeah, we find that we on our server, we kind of do monthly check-ins with all of our members where we kind of open the floor. Like they can come to us at any time, but I find that having like a designated kind of time for people to come in with that, people who are a bit shyer about maybe making suggestions, if there's like an ongoing conversation, they feel a little bit more able to make a suggestion or have an input.
Yeah, I'd also build on that as well, what Adele said, that there's creativity in the team. And I think if initiatives come from the team up, I think that actually, you know, people get behind them rather than you have to, you know, that kind of forced fun that Kathleen was talking about. And also actually there's different things like cooking, or you might kind of, you know, step outside of just still looking at the camera, or feeling that there still has that intensity of having to be that little square box and kind of put it and do some other stuff, you know, like, so I don't know, do your Zumba or your yoga, but I know I'll just give you a good idea. My other half is doing a kind of a meeting, like an informal kind of catch-up meeting with a few different people, and he's ordered in basically a box of different beer, 4 different beers from different countries, and they're going to do an online beer tasting as part of it. Or maybe it's a cheese and wine, or it's some kind of, so maybe creative ideas around how do you connect that sense of having a meal or sharing food together that you would as a team if you were celebrating something. So there's some other you know, connecting around food maybe.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea, because we sell products to promote positive mental well-being, and we sell like little kits to help with promote mindfulness on the move, and we sell them to corporates and we can white label them. So having other ideas or things you can bring in like that, that's actually really good.
Yeah,
like the food.
I work with Airfield now, so I'm going to give Airfield a plug. So they do take away stuff as well. But yeah, I think that would be just connecting people around sharing food together is a nice idea.
Absolutely.
And Tom Layton, do you have Nikki, do you want to? So you keep reaching for the unmute.
Yeah, no, so I'm Tom from Meaningful Business, and so that was a brilliant presentation. So thank you. It's interesting. So all month we've been running a series with business leaders and humanitarian leaders around the world, talking about how they're looking after their own mental health, but also prioritizing the well-being of their team.
Yeah.
And I think one thing to consider is the kind of regional differences in the stigma that exists around the topic.
Yeah.
And I mean, clearly there's lots of work to be done here in the UK, but we're probably further along than other parts of the world, and even, you know, using the term mental health in certain countries, certain regions, immediately makes people slightly uncomfortable. So I really like the ideas of going in with other things which do promote well-being but aren't directly saying that. So like gaming or like food or whatever it is, which is hopefully helping people at the moment, but isn't it isn't maybe making people feel uncomfortable about the topic.
Yeah, absolutely, because I think that there is an element of that, and particularly with men, identify more with certain things like feelings of loneliness, and you know, they're more willing to kind of admit that than like a mental health problem. There's kind of there can definitely be barriers there.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it was really good. So thank you.
Okay. Wonderful. So Sophie and I are texting each other about how happy we are with all of the work you guys have done. If there's any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. Thank you for a really great presentation, Warren. My name is Jenny. I'm from Workday. So one thing that I'd just love to share with you and everyone else is we have found that senior executive sponsorship has proven to be really impactful in having senior people tell their stories of mental health challenges that are having. So, you know, I agree with Adele's point that a lot of the programs need to come from the ground up. But equally, when you have senior people talking about the challenges, struggles, or experiences that they've had, it normalizes experiences of mental health challenges and you know, aims to remove that stigma. So that's something that we're seeing is being really impactful, important, and we're going to continue to drive on that.
That's a great idea. I think it as well, it ties in with the STEM and the role models. Like, I think having those role models is really important.
For sure.
Well, we know now what next event is going to be role models. So that seems to have been the theme. Thank you so much again for another wonderful presentation and so many great insights from just the last 2 days. Our last but not least, Michael, I know, so Michael, you're here, yes? There you are. There you are. I know you guys had a little bit of scheduling problems with your team, but do you want to just give us a quick rundown on kind of what you guys found in the last 2 days?
We can use the Miro board if you want.
Yeah.
I'll put up the Miro board and you can see what you guys have there.
Yeah.
All right. So, Michael, if you want to just walk us through what you have.
Oh,
or what you guys have done.
Yeah, it's most of my colleagues that's done most of this anyway. But basically, what we were looking at is sustainable goals and Gas Networks Ireland. And we basically, the challenge of actually implementing sustainable goals. And my only contribution was a few ways of maybe measuring carbon output.
Down here.
Yeah, and the particularly difficult part is the social dimension of the sustainable goals and how to measure them in a corporate way. And I came across various methodologies, such as the EIB, one for actually measuring and monetizing carbon footprint impacts, but with regards to impacting on the actual, let's say, cities or socioeconomic aspects of impacts on society that will be within the sustainable goals. They're probably a bit more difficult to measure. And I just had an example of maybe using freight in Ireland, because we're dependent on fossil fuels and it contributes to our carbon emissions. So maybe pivoting around transforming into a green freight using biogas and from agriculture and using that as a way of one way of getting sustainable goals and using smart meters. So there's plenty of documentation about the methodology and how organizations do these things, but to actually measure the actual softer sides, well, I had particular difficulty, I think my colleague had as well. She probably had more expertise in this area of actually measuring that and putting it into a corporate framework. So that's you can, identify your sustainable goals that you want to, like Gas Networks Ireland would be just more than just clean energy. It would be, clean cities, societal impacts. So how do you measure those? And is there methodologies for doing it? And I didn't really get an opportunity to research the methodologies in a great amount of detail, apart from the actual carbon footprint aspect of it. So.
No, I think it was interesting yesterday. And I remember in the discussion yesterday, you guys talked about how do you measure the SDGs that aren't necessarily the carbon focused ones. So that was an interesting point. That came up, I think, throughout sort of linking all of the topics that we have today together. So thank you, Michael. I put you on the spot there. So thank you for jumping in and sharing the work y'all have done so far. Any questions or any comments anybody would like to make about the measuring impact?
No, I suppose I'll just make a comment. Like, thanks very much, Michael, for your words. I suppose we're in Gas Networks Ireland, like we are focusing on 6 of the UN SDGs. So we have 3 primary and 3 secondary ones. So I suppose the reason that we pose this question is that it's kind of notoriously difficult to measure your impact on the Sustainable Development Goals. There are, you know, lots of different companies aligning their strategies to the UN SDGs. And there's varying different methodologies in different companies, so there's no one size fits all. So I guess it's kind of it's really important for us to not be like what we would say like SDG washing. You know, we really want to make sure that we're measuring and communicating our tangible progress. So like there's 169 targets under the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So you know, we've been aligned to the UN SDG since 2016. They came out in 2015, but we're at the point now where we really want to, you know, dig deeper into each of the 169 targets and see where we can align our not just our sustainability strategy, but our overall business strategy to them. So it's kind of like SDGs 2.0 for us, I suppose. This is kind of it's notoriously difficult. And no, thanks very much for your contribution, Michael. I appreciate it, and well done.
Yeah, it's just one of the things I came across, like when I was looking at all the different goals, like the societal things like addressing hunger, like energy is linked to, you know, let's say people living alone with energy needs and reducing the cost of energy needs, and the need to, you know, for not just corporations, but government and society needs to work with corporations as well to achieve some of the sustainable goals that Gas Network itself might not be able to address the energy things, but with governments or with the EU within a legislative framework and maybe some assistance, it might be possible to achieve some of the more softer societal goals that are equally as important as the goals like clean energy.
Could I ask a question into the group, just and probably to you, Christina, just in terms of Gas Networks Ireland as one of the brands? You'd have SSE, Electricity, and all the different gas, I suppose, companies out there. Is there a kind of a sector kind of joined up thinking? So as a sector that you have your, you know, sectoral SDGs and then individual, because ultimately gas and electricity is a utility, you know, so, you know, broadly there's other community initiatives that you're doing outside of just your providing renewable energy. So those community or measuring the impact in the communities are outside just the production of your product, you know. So is there an industry, is there kind of a, yeah.
So I suppose in Gas Networks, like we are part of a number of different networks of sustainable business, and they're not just specific to our own industry and energy, but also like the wider, you know, I suppose, business network in Ireland. So we are part of like the Business and Community Network, and we have ISO 26000. So it's the international standard for responsible and sustainable business. So we're one of 34 companies in Ireland to hold that mark, including a lot of the utilities as well. But as regards to the SDGs and having utility frameworks, I suppose there are some like white papers and papers that have been published by like the likes of IPECA, like the oil and gas industry have mapped how gas companies like ours can map ourselves against the UN SDG. So for example, like with the social piece, like around equality and, you know, decent work and economic growth and health and well-being, like specifically around communities with gas exploration and oil exploration, like there is guidance on how you can align yourself with that. But I suppose again, like that, there is no one size fits all. So I suppose every company does have its own unique nuances and like little areas that might necessarily be a blanket for all gas or utility companies. But yeah, we are part of some communities of practice with the likes of like the Business and the Community Network and with other European utilities. But the conversations wouldn't necessarily always be about the UN SDGs, you know, so like there isn't a one size fits all anyways, like the answer to your question.
Okay, thanks for that. No, it's just interesting.
We're going to have Elena, who is the other participant working on that group. She just got back, so we're going to hope she joins us in the next like few seconds. And she can also share some of her thoughts and findings on...
Can I share a little story, which Christina's comments made me think about, and I don't know if it helps at all. I have a friend who was running a very big chemical company recently, AkzoNobel, until recently. And he was big on the SDGs, and he used to go around with the pin on his lapel and stuff like that. And he's an engineer, so he's a problem solver, which I think is what, you know, STEM is all about. And that's another reason why it's attractive to women, because it's solving problems. Anyway, so he told me that it was very difficult for him to introduce sustainability into the mindset of the stakeholders. And one of the things he would do is he would start the quarterly meetings with all the investors, not by talking about the numbers. He would start talking about you know, the environment and the people. And there were a couple of things that he sort of keyed on and started talking about first, which were things like, you know, accident reports, okay, safety. So that's all about the people, and spills and so on. So he tried to, you know, do the triple bottom line and tip it the other way around. And he found it extremely difficult, because a lot of the analysts who are really just sort of, you know, driven by sticks to respond on quarterly earnings would sort of be saying, okay, but where's the important stuff? But from the point of view of the company and the organization, it really helped, because everybody realized that they were trying to change the culture and not just be driven by the accountants all the time, but be driven by actually some human values. But it was very difficult. I'm not sure whether or not his initiative actually ended up being successful. But things like that are quite, I thought it was clever. And maybe there are things that one can do in, you know, even a place like Gas Networks Ireland, which is using fossil fuels and so on, to say, well, okay, but we're going to report it from a different perspective and say, okay, well, you know, what's important? And they're triple bottom line. So there's the sorts of things that, you know, SRI investors, green funds and so on are looking at and asking about and so on.
Yeah. Nice. And then, so we have Elena that has just dropped in as well. We're happy to have you back. And this is one of the nice things about the virtual events, that people can come in and come out when they can. Elena, Michael went through a little bit of what y'all had done over the last 2 days. And I want to know if you wanted to give us kind of your overview. You were here really solidly throughout the last 2 days. So we wanted to give you the chance to share what you'd worked on and anything that you wanted particularly to point out that you found, or the solutions you saw.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone, and apologies for having been missing most of this call. I had some work coming through I had to attend, but yes, so I have been contributing to the hack, and I'm just opening up the Miro app again on this big quest of measuring impact measurement of the Sustainable Development Goals and communication, which is something, to be honest, that all companies and the government itself is struggling to really figure out, because as we know, the Sustainable Development Goals are a framework for everyone to inspire to make our future planet a better place to live. So they are kind of general guidelines, and then have been distilled through, you know, government bodies into then, you know, companies and third sector and not-for-profits to just figure out how to make them localized and make them our own solutions. So obviously we are splitting our approach into these kind of two main categories: the communication bit and the impact measurement bit. What I've done is I kind of subdivided these two buckets into really started to figuring out who our target audience is. So from the perspective of a company doing this exercise, obviously there are internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. So I've broken that down into these categories, because obviously from a communication perspective, the means and the way we would communicate with an internal audience, meaning employees operation departments, management departments would be very different from the communication we would have with external stakeholders, meaning customers, meaning partner organization, meaning for-profit organization of collaborators that we would be working with. From an impact measurement perspective, again, I've broken this down into, I suppose, quantifiable and workable areas. So we as a collective individuals, we have all a responsibility towards achieving the UN Sustainable Goals, which, as we know, are 17, 231 indicators, but they are quite broad and bring together the reality of developing economies as well as so-called developed economies. So we have these big topics like zero poverty, end of poverty, education for all, which obviously have different, are developed in different ways from whatever geography we're in. So that kind of is the big bucket, right? And then we distilled it down to our own reality and what can we do in the specific of Ireland? And so what are the most pressing needs that are existing in Ireland? And also as a company, what impact as a company, a single company can have in sort of attacking and bringing solution to solve these needs. And so this is what is becoming a little bit trickier in my opinion, because I don't really know what company are we talking about. I mean, I know now it's Borgosh, but I haven't seen Borgosh spec where they're at, what they're trying to resolve, what vision do they have in resolving specific issues, at what stage of their development they are. So obviously being an energy utility company, I presume that the environmental aspect is the most immediate for them to want to attack. But as we know from also, you know, best practices out there, and everybody's talking about ESG at the moment, which is environmental, social, and governance best practices. We cannot leave the human side out if we are attacking the environmental side, and pretty much vice versa. And also the whole government piece is something that the business community and impact investors are really kind of tightening up at international level as well in terms of rules and regulation. So this is my approach, and this is as far I can talk to you about, because this is how much work I've done.
No, that was brilliant. Thank you. And again, we like kind of threw you on the spot there to do it. Real quick, since I'm aware that we're running a bit late on time. Do you have any questions for Elena?
I have someone that wants to come in.
Yep, I got him. All right, so since there's no questions, then I'm going to ask the judges if you will click over into your Discord server, into the judges channel. You can keep this Zoom call open and mute your camera and your microphone. And if you don't, I will do it for you. So don't worry, nobody will hear you. And Sophie will be over in that Discord channel with you as well. If you need any, if you have any questions or need any clarification or anything like that. While the judges are doing their very difficult job of deliberating, which I'm always glad I don't have to do, I'm going to ask Christina, are you here? There you are. Christina, if you'd like to share a bit about what Gas Network is doing and your role there.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks to everybody for their great presentations. It was really interesting, and it was definitely good to be sitting here and listening in at Emma's and Muireann's presentation as well. They're really good, well done. So no, it's definitely an area that we are all involved in, like particularly the women in STEM, and also like I think it's something that we're really engaged in at the moment. But I suppose my role in Gas Networks Ireland, I am corporate responsibility manager there, and Anne Moore, who's on the call as well, she's a sustainability manager. So I actually report to Anne. Anne's my boss, so she's there being a great judge today. So no, we work together and we have a brand new sustainability team. And I suppose for us in Gas Networks Ireland, sustainability focuses on the 3 pillars, and that is environmental, social and economic. And my primary focus is the social pillar of sustainability. So that involves the community projects that we work on, our workplace, employee engagement initiatives, like health and well-being, and also some of our marketplace piece as well, like stakeholder engagement and innovation and stuff like that. So I would work with people all across the business. And also in Anne's area as well, we have the environment team, and they're very focused on, you know, climate change and our affordable and clean energy agenda, and also the day-to-day stuff like the environmental assessments and making sure that we're being biodiversity aware. And what else? So from the economic perspective, our economic people are obviously making sure that we're a profitable company and that we are giving a good dividend back to shareholders, that are contributing to the economy as well with our projects, that they're bringing you know, I suppose that our supply chain is like robust and ethical. And I think something that we're doing lately as well is a lot of like our tenders, making sure that sustainability criteria are put into our tendering process, so that our suppliers and our contractors and the people that we work with are also living and working sustainably. So they're also taking on our goals and objectives as well, I think is really important. So some of the main things that we do, like my main day-to-day job is focusing on the community. That's I suppose that's what I spend like maybe 80% of my time working on. So we run a lot of different successful community programs, and they focus on the areas of the main area of social inclusion, and within that then education, employability and accessibility. So we are a nationwide company, and we have gas pipeline running all across Ireland. So we have 14,000 kilometres worth of gas pipeline, and that's the equivalent of travelling from Dublin to Perth in Australia. So it kind of gives you the breadth of the you know, the responsibility, I suppose, of running like a 24-hour gas pipeline network. So we have community programs with communities all across Ireland. I suppose our main flagship program is a science program called Energize, and that's a 6-class STEM program. And again, which is something that, you know, I had reflections on from the work that you guys were presenting on earlier on. We try and focus that program on girls where possible. So last year we reached 5,200 students, and 55% of those were girls. But again, we don't roll out the program like just specifically to girls or at the detriment of boys or whatever, you know. We're just trying to target girls where possible. And we also do lots of work for Engineers Week and Science Week. And we work with iWish as well. iWish is a girls in STEM conference, and that takes place in Dublin and Cork every year. So what else do we run? So we have lots of different school connections as well. So we have long-standing connections with DESH schools, disadvantaged schools in both. So our head office is in Cork, and our secondary office is in Dublin, and we have lots of different regional offices as well throughout the country. But we're partnered with our school in Cork for 15 years, Nago College in Cork, and we're partnered with our school in Dublin 12 years they're in Finglas, so they're close to our offices as well. And our charity partner is Age Action. So we are partnered with Age Action since 2016. And initially our partnership with them grew from us donating carbon monoxide alarms to Age Action. So I suppose since then we've donated 150,000 euros worth of carbon monoxide alarms, but our partnership has grown a lot, and we do lots of different fundraising and employee volunteering with Age Action as well. So I suppose most recently, because of COVID, we've donated to their hardship fund. So they launched a hardship fund for vulnerable service users for them to be able to apply for a small donation of like maybe 250 or 500 euro to, you know, fill a pressing need, a COVID related need for them. So we sponsored that, and our employees have been volunteering with their service users on something called the tech tutoring program. So our volunteers do a one-to-one, they have like a mentor mentee, and they're showing the older service users like how to use their smartphones, how to make a Zoom call, how to, you know, browse the internet and stuff like that, which has been more important now than ever for them, particularly when they were cocooning in the beginning, so they can kind of keep in touch with their friends and family, and, you know, I suppose help address some social isolation issues. But there's lots of stuff that we're doing in Gas Networks Ireland. I'm trying to think like off the top of my head that they're the main kind of things. I might open it up and you might like want to ask a question or something like that, you know, rather than me yabbling on for the next 20 minutes talking to myself.
Yeah, no. If anybody have any questions, definitely open the floor.
Well, this is Michael. I think other aspects of Gas Networks Ireland, because I'm familiar, because I've dealt with EU projects before, is the whole renewable energy and putting renewable energy into our transport system, which is a major problem because of the nature of our dependence on road freight. So I know Gas Networks Ireland, we're working with University College Galway to develop renewable biogas and put it through to HGVs. And that's a way of reducing our carbon footprint.
Yep.
And it's a way of actually fulfilling a lot of the sustainable goals. And I found I didn't have much time to look at this, but I found it was very easy to measure carbon footprint reductions. But with regards to some of the softer social goals, sustainable goals, there doesn't seem to be an agreed methodology as to how to communicate them in a corporate environment, put it that way.
Yeah, it is quite difficult, Michael. So I suppose with the freight bit that you're talking about, the renewable energy, last year we launched a plan called Vision 2050, and it's our plan to you know, have a net zero carbon network, so decarbonizing the network by 2050, and that's through a combination of different technologies like renewable gas, Michael, and also like hydrogen as well. So we're exploring the option, you know, the possibility of putting hydrogen through our network, and that it will replace natural gas in time, and also carbon capture and storage, that's capturing the carbon that's emitted and storing it underground in, say, decommissioned or disused former gas plots. And then also what you're talking about there, CNG, so compressed natural gas for haulage and for fleet. So transport carbon emissions are a significant part of Ireland's carbon footprint, and it is part of our overall, you know, strategic plan. So we've got some EU funding in the past couple of years to roll out a nationwide network of compressed natural gas stations, filling stations. And last year we put renewable gas. Oh, sorry, I see my internet connection's gone.
We can still hear you though.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
we can hear you.
I was getting, everybody froze, and I could see your internet connection's unstable, so I didn't know how long I was talking to myself for. So
no, we heard you. You're fine.
Anyway, good job I didn't say anything like, oh no. Yeah. Anyway, so no, yeah, like the CNG network at the moment, we just introduced renewable gas on the network for the first time, and that was through a farmer who is based in Cush in County Kildare. So he's taking like pig slurry and, you know, farming outputs and putting them into something called an anaerobic digester, and through anaerobic digestion they're making biogas and putting it back into the Gas Networks Ireland network for the first time. So it's kind of a new process for us, and at the moment Tesco is buying a lot of that renewable gas and putting it back into their stores. So it's paying I think it's 12 of their stores, the gas requirements for 12 of their stores. So I suppose it's a real good example of the circular economy, you know, Tesco giving us some of their food waste, for example, putting it in the anaerobic digester, and they're buying back the biogas, and it's kind of like a net carbon neutral process. But yeah, I suppose the bits that Michael raised are definitely on our, you know, they're in our strategy at the moment. So it's kind of, you know, we need to be doing these things. We need to be putting renewable gas into the network, because not just for our own business model, but because it's the only thing, the right thing to do. It's, you know, it's on, these are our plans now to decarbonize the network by 2050, you know, so yeah.
Great. I love it. So nice. I love hearing about all the things people are doing. Thank you so much for sharing some more information for everybody on what the Gas Networks Ireland is doing. We also have Rujing is here. Where are you? There you are. She's going to tell us a little bit
everyone.
about what Weiwei is doing.
Yeah. Hello everyone. This is Rujing. Could you hear me clearly?
Perfect.
Yep. Yep. This is Rujing, communications manager from Huawei Island. Thank you for Sophie and Kaitling to arrange this wonderful and interactive event during the pandemic period as well. Today, I want to share some true stories that I know about women in tech, especially from those brilliant female tech leaders from Huawei globally. And although I know from many reports and many figures about women in tech that we are still having a long way to go regarding the genuine equality and diversity in the area, but today I would like to try to highlight some positive things I know to, some positive voices around the issue, and especially would like to highlight women in tech, especially from the education perspective. So a bit of background about me. Actually, I just got transferred from Huawei Shenzhen headquarters to the Dublin office. Barely just here for 2 months. I think I have kind of personality that I'm quite used to traveling globally, either studying or working. And during the trip, the more I make new friends with, especially all those young girls from different countries, the more I feel that our generation of female usually displays the personality of being independent, being motivated to pursue their career, academia or career ambition, and could easily adapt it to new challenges and new environment. I'm from the southeastern part of mainland China, and like several generations ago, the tradition regarding gender relationship in my hometown is that usually female are expected to take the responsibility of house chores, of raising children, taking care of their husband, and devote their whole lives to the family. But I could see that such norms started to change from these 2 to 3 generations, because girls, the same as boys, are usually given the best education resources their parents could provide as well, and they're expected to have their own talents, their own skills and career. So one interesting phenomenon, like several generations before, is that in a Chinese family, if the Chinese family only has girls, not boys, then the girls' names were given as with the meaning of expecting a boy or expecting a little brother, which is quite cruel, of course. But this kind of phenomenon was hard to see anymore at the moment. So it's really great that we are seeing more and more families and schools are nurturing independent girls equally as boys now. So now zooming to our focus of women in tech today. So I think what I just highlighted, that the feeling about the personality of contemporary females and the way they are raised provided a solid base to encourage more women to freely choose what they want to learn or what they want to do for jobs. And I'm fortunate to know some brilliant female tech leaders from Huawei globally, and I could see all those independency and confidence in them. For example, there's a woman called Daisy Zhu, who is the chief marketing officer of Huawei wireless product lines. But within Huawei, she is more famous with another nickname called 5G Lady. And why is that? Because it's like as early as like 10 years ago, when Huawei started to invest into 5G research. So she started to work with those frontier researchers at that time. and her job was to promote the idea of 5G into the market, cooperating with industrial associations when no one knew about 5G at that time. And because it takes times for the public, for consumers or for customers to know more about 5G, because they cannot stand alongside the frontier researchers as Daisy did. So this kind of functions as the bridge between the public and the researchers. So I actually would like to share my screen and share a little bit of a video of how Daisy Zhu explained 5G, and then you could have the taste of how a female tech leaders have been accumulating her experience in 5G promotion.
Just made you a co-host, so you should be able to share.
So I think I could share my screen directly. Okay. Could you see it now? Okay.
Oops. We just don't have sound. Is there sound?
Yes. So you can't hear the sound, or
no? But we can see the subtitles.
Yeah. I think due to the time lag, I'm just going to play a bit of this. Then, cool. Yeah, you were able to find more videos regarding Daisy Zhu or the other Huawei tech female leaders in the official YouTube website of Huawei. Yeah, you could see that. Yeah, that's the way. That's her idea of branding 5G into the public. To hear the sounds now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to end here, just to give you a rough idea of how a female tech leader could be with the the promotion of emerging technologies. So, so in addition to the example I just gave, I got the chance to talk with more female tech leaders about women in tech, about gender equality in ICT industries. And usually I would ask them one question that I'm curious about is that why did you choose a course that usually not many girls choose to study? And when you choose your major, does anyone tell you that you are not that girls are not good at STEM? And the most answers I got from them is that they choose to learn STEM because they like it, because they are good at it, like the example of Daisy Zhu. And if they're good at literature, they would just choose literature. So rarely is there anyone that tells them STEM is peculiar for boys or literature is peculiar for girls. But regarding the fact that usually less than 20% of STEM students are female, for this, their response is that some girls just don't know what STEM is about. So I'm not a biologist, but there seems to me that there are some innate inclination that girls are more interested at liberal arts and boys at science. But from my point of view, I think interests could be fostered, could be acquired if given enough input. And this may change some girls' choice when deciding what courses they want them. So another interesting example I want to share from my colleagues that I have a colleague who is a female cybersecurity engineer from Huawei Shenzhen. So she has two daughters. The older daughter just completed her first grade. She is now in second grade in primary school. And nowadays, in the first tier or second tier cities in China, usually the science class is offered to students together with other liberal arts courses like sports, painting, music, something like that. So science class is offered as well. So after completing first grade, the kid just asks her mom to sign her up to additional weekly coding courses. She wants to learn coding herself, and this is purely interest inspired. But my colleague still says that she's not going to obliging her girl to definitely to pursue STEM as a career, of course, in the future. Because although she's interested at it now, she sees all sorts of possibilities in her daughter. Even if her daughter decides to learn another major or to pursue another job in the future when she grows up, she thinks that the learning of coding itself is a great way to develop a coding thinking, a logical, a reasonable mindset. And I think as she thinks that this is already good for her. So I'm quite touched by this answer and hope that we would have more such cases and such mindset. So while encouraging women's STEM education, I think we are not simply obliging more girls to be enrolled into STEM course, but trying to make sure that girls could access enough briefing and knowledge and resources of science and technology from a relatively younger age, that they have someone to open the door for them, to guide them into, let's say, a Disneyland of technology and science, for them to wander around, for them to make their own choices. So Huawei is already on our way to try to contribute to something. For example, we are promoting the ideas of 5G, of Internet of Things, of smart cities or digital transformation to students and the public through the voice of female role models like Daisy Zhu. And then we are also hosting some tech experience events for students. For example, we have a Seeds for the Future program, a flagship program we have been running globally since 2008. And the program offers university students the chance to attend lectures, technology lectures given by Huawei tech leaders or our industrial or academic partners. And in many countries, we keep a minimum of 30% or 35% of female enrollment. And this principle applied in Huawei Ireland as well. And this year, due to the pandemic, we transformed the program into online. And we are happy to see that up to now, for all the applications we received, female applicants already take up around 40% to 45%. So we hope that in a future society with new emerging technologies, females could involve in the process equally, and only under the diversity of talents in the industry could we enjoy a more developed technologies and applications that serve all genders equally. So I know that there are many other issues regarding women in tech, and due to time limit, I just focus on female STEM education today, and hopefully we got other chances to delve into other issues as well. Yep, thank you.
There we go. Thank you so much. That was so interesting. I can't wait to go and watch letting everybody back in the videos.
Yeah, we have a lot. We have developed a lot of these videos, either letting the inviting these Huawei female tech leaders to talk about their own stories, or to talk about the industry, the projects they are running on. It's quite interesting. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Cool. So perfect timing as well. The judges are just all dropping back into the Zoom. I love it when things line up perfectly. So Sophie's just sending me along here all of the details on the what and the who. And then we will do the exciting part of announcing our winners and wrapping everything up. So cool. Let me just make sure. This is the most stressful part for me of the entire event, always, is to make sure I get all of the right people on the right thing. One second. Usually when Sophie and I are in the same place, we're sitting next to each other having this conversation. And so nobody can see that we're having it. So, all right, we just make sure everybody is back. Are we missing? I say, are we missing anyone? But they won't answer, will they? Let's wait for Sophie to get back. I think she's the only one missing. And then we can kick off with the final bit. Oh, there we go. I knew I was missing somebody. Aoife's back. Who else is still in the Discord? Anybody? No, Sophie. All right, there we go. Now we have everybody. There we go. We didn't want to do the fun part without you.
I'm here. I'm here. I was lost in the internet again. I was like, I don't know where I need to be now.
All right, so here's the exciting bit. We're going to get to announce the winners. First off, though, because everybody did such amazing work in 3 days. Sophie and I are always really pleasantly shocked at how much work people can get done in a really short amount of time, literally 9 hours. Spread out over 3 days. So for everybody who has participated in the event, we have tickets to the Web Summit. So everyone will be getting tickets to that. You'll get an email with information on how to access that, and we will make sure that everybody gets those. Those will come up probably not today. We'll get those to you on Monday next week, because we're gonna have recovery time after. And then Aoife, if you would like to announce your winner of the Weiwei Prize.
Sure. Yeah, our winner was the first presentation on the Women in STEM, Emma, which we thought was just a fantastic presentation. Lots of really well thought out ideas, really had a clear understanding of the problem statements and some great solutions presented. So thank you very much for all the amazing work you did.
Congrats, Emma. And then the next we have also the chance to present your information and some hour of mentorship meeting, and the chance to also be able to present information from both Gas Networks and Meaningful Business, and those are going to Emma as well.
Oh. Yeah.
So Emma and Miriam, your presentation was amazing. So to your team, sorry, your presentation and the information that you guys brought together was absolutely amazing. Really incredible work, as was everybody else's. We were so impressed by all of the work. I will share, or I'm going to download all of your Miro boards into PDFs, and I'll share them out to everyone, so you can see just the quantity of work that happened over the last 3 days. So again, congratulations to everyone who participated. Again, super impressed by all of the work that you all did. You are now, if you participated, part of our What the Heck network. So we will be sending out more information on events coming up, things that you might be interested. If you want to stay in touch with anybody who was part of the event, you can either message them on the Discord or get in touch with myself or Sophie, and we can connect you guys. We also, everyone has LinkedIn. So most people who are here are followers of the What the Heck LinkedIn page. If you're not, you should be. And you can also find people there. Everybody who has participated kind of flows through there at some point. What else? I think that's everything that I usually have to say. Huge thank you also to our judges and mentors who joined us and speakers who joined us over the last 3 days. We always say it's really because of you guys helping the teams along the way and doing the hard part of deciding who should win, that we can make these events so meaningful and so impactful to all of our participants. And also really extra big thank you again to Meaningful Business, the Gas Networks Ireland, and Weiwei for sponsoring and providing the, and the French Embassy for sponsoring and providing problem statements for the event. So I think that's everything. Sophie, did I forget everything?
Yeah.
Anything?
No,
I got everything.
no. You got everything. Yeah.
Cool.
Well done.
Lovely day. Have a great day. Thanks. Great to be involved. Lovely to meet everyone on virtually. Have a great day. And congratulations again to everybody involved. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
We'll
you.
keep the chat open for a minute.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. If anybody
Bye.
chat, we'll be here. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Jing, for coming on to chat. I really enjoyed hearing your chat. Hearing you talk.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.